Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to call our 1 o'clock matter. State of Utah versus Meggan Sundwall, case 251-401-132. This is the third day of our preliminary hearing. I believe defense is in the middle of cross-examining Detective Farney. Is that correct?
My understanding.
Anything we need to cover before we get going?
Not from the state.
Nothing. That's right.
All right, Detective Farney, if you please come up again. We're going to get you sworn in again.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in the case now before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thanks for being here. You remember the request about the mic?
Yes.
Keep it in front of you so we can make a good record and everyone can hear. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Farney, I've spent some time in preparation for today to see if we can streamline and sort of categorize some information that I'd like to get to the judge. And so I'm going to do it in subject matters. I'm going to try to be more succinct than we were sort of ending last time. I want to start, however, I won't say however, but I'm going to start with the category of evidence that has been described by you on direct. We went into a little bit about what I called sort of some of the cherry-picked text communications in connection with the subject that we discussed, which was confirmation bias. I want to just show you and go over with you. It's just down.
Oh, okay.
There's just 3 sections. For instance, and I'm actually just going to refer, first of all, to the section of your police report where you speak or you call out messages from February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2020. Do you recall such messages?
No, I do have my report if you need me to look at them.
Yeah, I've got page 392, but we had a little bit of 4 pages off between somebody's copies.
Yeah, hers might be 396.
If you look at 392 and see if that's close to your paragraph that starts 2/14/2020.
392?
That's what I have. That's the one I'm reading. No,
Okay, I think I have it.
says 2/14.
Yeah, there's only 2 texts, correct?
Well, that's all that was shown to the judge or put in your report.
Mhm.
But I just want to point out that the exhibit that was shown to the judge and the communication that you placed and put in your report, after that, which speaks to Kacee tells Meggan that she'll be getting her life insurance, and they're talking about life insurance. And Kacee telling Meggan that she's going to be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and review them anytime you need for refreshing your recollection, review your report.
yes.
And then after you place that in your report, you add commentary to the effect that Meggan had Kacee move into her home in May of 2020 with the expectation that she was going to die soon. That's your commentary, right?
Yes.
So I'd like to just read the text messages from that day in full context that resulted in the conclusion that you wrote in your report. It's going to you, presumably referencing the life insurance. Remember, I told you that 3 years ago when I started this whole process, and it's the one thing that I have made sure to keep paying on, and I'm grateful that I pay the full year at once. That's what you would reference, right?
Yes.
And then Meggan, do they know about it? And then Kacee, you're my best friend, Meg. You've been my family, the one person who loves me. cares about me, takes care of me. There's not another person in this world that I would even consider leaving it to. And importantly, Meggan responding, I don't expect you to leave me anything, sweets. That doesn't matter one bit. The only thing that matters is you. Those are all of the text, the full context of the text on February 14th, 2020. Another circumstance that surrounds what the government chose to have you present at 1.2,
I'm sorry, was there a question in there?
you recall that, don't you? That those texts were the full communications of that day?
I don't recall that. No.
Then, on another occasion, the next thing in your report, if you've still got up there, I'm sorry, the next thing is a May 11th, 2020 snippet that you cut out and paste, right? Having to do with cancer in the neck.
Yes.
Then the next one is August 20th, 2020, right?
Yes.
Sorry, where are you? I'm lost.
Well, will you tell the government what page yours and their copy have the reference to text from August 20th, 2020?
I think my copy matches yours, not hers.
Oh, okay.
It's,
So go within like 4 pages.
yeah, it's close to 392.
That's why I pulled mine to give to you guys.
Oh, okay,
See
I'm
what
sorry.
fan?
I get it. Yeah,
Because of the 2 reports, I actually copied the page I was going to be working.
gotcha. Okay.
All right, so I had made some copies for the government, so because of this page difference that we ran into last time of the pages that at least I'm referencing. It sounds like they match your page numbering. So you referenced that on August 30th, you've got what you called the first message is about insulin being used to kill Kacee. You recall that?
I see that here, yes.
And then 820 before is more confirmation about the beneficiary of the life insurance, right?
Where is that? Sorry.
On 8/20/2020, not 8/30, sorry.
Oh, 820.
Just below 511. The next thing you cut out.
Where it says Meggan confirming that she's the beneficiary of Kacee's life insurance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to show you the entirety of text string from 820. Top sheet is just your page that you referred to. Would you take a look at that and see that whether it does look in fact like a copy of those text messages?
So what am I looking at? Sorry. The 820 is what I wrote and
The
The
top
rest
page is your
is-
police report.
the rest is the rest of the conversation. Is that?
Yes, can you want to look through and confirm that that looks like the rest of the conversation beginning on 820 between Meggan and Kacee?
I mean, I don't remember. It looks correct.
So if we're looking at this and it appears to be what you reviewed when you looked at the Celebrate,
Mm-hmm.
from Kacee, I'm sorry, from Meggan, did you go for your biopsy? From Kacee, nope, I even had it scheduled at Provo Hospital so that maybe you would come and sit with me for a little bit. But I didn't want a sleepover, and there's really no point in doing it if I'm gonna do this. Fair to say she's referring to suicide?
Where is that? I don't see that. I remember that, but I don't see it.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm on 921. Back spasms are an ugly thing. All right, let's go to the 820. Honestly, I don't know. Hopefully, since I have felt so weird the last few days, it's almost time to go home. That's where we started, right, on 820?
Yes, I see that.
That's Kacee talking about it's almost time to go home, right?
Yes,
It was fair to surmise that she's talking about suicide and the death she keeps talking about with Megan.
definitely, she's talking about death.
Yeah. Megan says, yeah. Kacee says, hope so. Megan says, do you feel like you are ready? That's Megan, right? Asking her about being ready for it.
Yes,
Then Kacee, yeah, I have been ready. That's why it's so frustrating. I am so tired of being in this much pain. Megan, I know, but just, you've been so scared, and so I didn't know if you were actually feeling ready. Kacee, I'm ready. I have just been trying to figure out a way to end, but I'm scared because I don't want to do that to you and Bella. But I know she is safe and loved here. Megan, a way to end? What does that mean? Kacee, I'm struggling with my texting. Hopefully you get it. End my life. Megan, oh, why? You don't need to do that. You'll go when it's time. Kacee, I'm sorry. Megan, I don't blame you for feeling that way, for sure. I'm sure I would think the same thing. I'd probably take a bunch of Benadryl and ZzzQuil and just try to go to sleep and not wake up. And Kacee, it sucks living like this. I don't want to do it anymore. Megan, I don't blame you, Case. I'm so sorry. And then Kacee talking again in this stream. I feel like I do that every night and it doesn't work. Megan asking about you take a bunch of Benadryl or ZzzQuil? Kacee, actually, I called the pharmacy the other day and asked them if there are any medications that at the same time, and he told me there are a couple that could put me in a coma possibly. I could take both those together. That's Kacee talking, and the reaction from Megan is, yikes, Case. Kacee, hopefully you get what I'm saying. I'm having a hard time texting. Again, it goes on, if you'll look through the pages, back and forth on this day as far back as 2020 on specific indications by Kacee of wanting to use exogenous sources of poisons to die, right?
are you asking me a question?
Yeah, does that affect, appropriately characterize the rest of this continued stream of texting back in 2020?
Yes, Megan is suggesting ways for Kacee to kill herself, and Casey's saying, okay, I'll try that.
I think you had it back the other way around. It's Kacee talking about, she went to a pharmacy to find out. Kacee, I called the pharmacy the other day and asked them if there are any medications that at the same time, and he told me there are a couple that could put me in a coma possibly or make my heart stop. That's Kacee talking about her efforts to figure out how to kill herself with poison, right?
Yeah, but right before that, Megan suggests the Benadryl and ZzzQuil to go to sleep and not wake up.
That she has. Megan says, I've wanted to do that, right?
She said that's what she would do.
And so throughout this, the discussion includes Kacee talking about how she has tried, how she has talked to pharmacies, and how she wants to end her life by ingesting poison. Can we agree on that?
Yes, absolutely. For 4 years.
Yeah, that goes back and forth. And the first stream we went through also is a good example of how Kacee is constantly asking Megan to be there for her. Can we agree on that?
They both do, yeah. They're very good friends in these texts. They want to be there for each other. So yes, that's a yes.
And Kacee in particular is wanting Megan to be there for her when Kacee is committing suicide.
I don't agree with that. There are a lot of texts where she tells Kacee or she tells Megan not to be there because she knows it will affect her poorly. She says she'll have.
When did
nurse
those
call
texts
her.
happen? I mean, you didn't pull those out, right?
I can find them
Okay.
if you'd like. I believe it was in March, but
Of-
of 2024, but let me look.
I have some pulled out from September of 2023. That's pretty close. Let me draw your attention to those.
Okay.
September 21st, 2023. Make sure they match mine first.
Okay. Thank you.
Sequence. All right, so that looks like September 21st,
Yes.
2023.
Yeah.
That's the question I started with, these are from Megan, right? Megan is saying, did you go for your biopsy?
Is that on the first page, your first page?
Yes.
I don't have that.
What is your start?
You've been waiting for over a month for your family to leave so you could do it.
Okay, so back in 921, the conversation turns again for Megan and Kacee talking about suicide, right?
Yeah.
And then Kacee says, I know, I will do it. And Megan says, don't they come home tomorrow? And then Kacee goes on for a long soliloquy to Megan. So far, they haven't gotten anything. So my grandpa told me this morning it would take me, it would be Monday. And my neighbors gets home tomorrow. He's been out of town. I called and asked him he could take care of Coda because I have to go into the hospital. That way I know he'll be taken care of. So he doesn't have to go with the food or the water. He said he wouldn't be home until Friday. So I told him I would reschedule my surgery, et cetera, talking about specific plans again to commit suicide, right?
Yes.
And says, obviously, I'm not going to go to the neighbor. I'm committing suicide. So I had to go with something else. And then she says, are you going to come over when I do it? Or do you just want me to FaceTime you and you can watch me take the meds? And then in a few hours, maybe you could come by and make sure it worked and get Bella for me. That's what Megan said, right?
That's what Kacee said, yes.
I'm sorry, that's what Kacee said on September 21st, 2023. Kacee again saying, I don't even have to FaceTime you if you don't want to watch that. I can just text you when it's done. Do you want the code to the garage? Then you could just come in and go downstairs. And gives the code to the garage, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to read that in open court. And then Megan responds, Case, I promise you I'd do whatever you want me to do. If that means you need me to be there, I will. That's what Megan says in response, right?
Yes.
I don't break promises, she says. I will let you decide and tell me what you want and what you need. And then Kacee says, I know you don't, but the more I thought about it, I feel selfish for making you watch that. Of course, I would love for you to be here with me, but I also don't want to give you PTSD or something. It's hard watching someone you care about die, and it can screw with your mental health. But if you think you can honestly do it and be okay, then yeah, I would love for you to be with me. Obviously, you are a hospice nurse too, so this isn't anything new for you. I just want to make sure you'll be okay. I just remember the night that I took the insulin and you said I was having seizures and stuff, and it was very hard for you to watch. And Megan responds, Case, I want to be there with you. And talks about the day of maybe Saturday. Now, this is September of 2023, right? This isn't related to the death in our case.
Correct.
And then Kacee says, thank you, Megan. That means a lot. Yes, that would be just fine. Asks about tomorrow. And that's the end of that day's stream, right? In that exhibit or in that set of papers?
There's a few more, but
Talking about whether we're really going to try to do it on Monday?
Yeah.
All right, I want to change categories. I want to ask you something about the evidence that would be contained in medical records.
okay. Okay.
We ultimately obtained the medical records from the hospital that had to do with Kacey's being admitted and ultimately passing there, right?
Yes.
But at the time that Meggan was charged, those hadn't even been achieved, right? They hadn't even been acquired.
I believe they had.
Really? Did you have anything to do with getting them?
I did all the subpoenas, so I would have had to have something to do with it. I don't remember the exact date we got those though. No, I don't
So-
remember.
You weren't part of the motion practice we did to file a motion stipulated with the judge about 2 weeks before this preliminary hearing started to get medical records about Kacey's stay in the hospital? You weren't part of that process?
I don't believe so.
Let's talk about another set of records that might be related. Dr. Mastler was a pretty key part of this investigation, right?
We spoke with him a couple times. Yes.
Testified at the preliminary hearing, apparently the
Mhm.
state thought he was important.
Yes.
We learned at that preliminary hearing that in fact, Dr. Mastetler's records having to do with the history of Kacee had not even been achieved. They haven't been received yet either, have they? We don't even have those.
I think you're right. I don't think we have those.
Now, I just want to point out what possible points of interest in that besides the obvious. Do you remember when Dr. Mastetler was asked questions about this subject of blood sugar? Kacey's blood sugar, right? Remember that subject when he testified?
No. I mean, if you can refresh my memory.
That he said he had a long history where she would call in with numbers about her.
Yes.
And then she would, I mean, once again, probably faking diabetes, but that the subject of blood sugar in the history of what he saw in his records came up in open court and even in your interview of him.
My understanding was the opposite, that it was that she had high blood, or it was the opposite of diabetes, that she would,
She once sent him a reading of 30. Do you remember that discussion?
no,
Including the interview with Mastetler where he told you that in person?
I don't remember. It's been a while.
So in terms of that history, we learned another interesting thing. And you tell me if you agree that the first time you heard it was when Mastetler said he had given her a glucometer that she had had for a couple of years. Did you ever know that Kacee had her own glucometer from Mastetler?
I didn't know she had it for years. I vaguely remember that conversation, but I thought it was just for a few tests and
Okay. Have you ever asked Mastetler about the glucometer subject?
I don't know.
And you didn't know till you got on the witness stand that Kacee had her own glucometer, did you?
I knew that he had given her a device to take home
And where'd you get that information from?
from him.
When?
It was during one of our interviews.
The recorded interviews.
Yeah, I believe so.
I'm not gonna go through the trouble now, but you may review that recorded interview in the future and determine whether you still agree that you had any discussion with him about a glucometer. At any rate,
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think it was a glucometer because I think it was a different ailment. He sent her home with a device, but I don't know what device it was. I don't know if it was a heart
talk
rate
about-
monitor or something else. It was for some ailment, but
let's talk about this glucometer piece of this case and move on to the very subject of the glucometer. It's been presented, there's a chart. Do you have the ability to put exhibit? I think it's 2. Showing exhibit 2, it's what we call the chart of glucometer readings. It's popping up. And I want to ask you a few more questions about it, and it's been presented to a few witnesses to opine on, including Dr. Mastetler. First of all, I'm not sure I'm clear how this was created. Do you know?
yeah.
Were you present for the creation of it?
Yes.
Did you input this data?
Yes, I made a handwritten chart and then we had someone else put it into a actual chart.
Okay, so did you take readings off of a glucometer?
Did we take readings? We
Yeah.
just, did I? Yes, I took the pictures of each, I guess, incident, whatever it's called.
And the
Yes.
belief in this case is that these are readings that are generated by a glucometer that is in Casey's room the day that, before she was taken to the hospital, right?
It was found that in her room, yes.
According to who?
It's in the body cam from when the officers are there.
Right. I didn't see it, so maybe review that. But at any rate,
It's under the window on her computer. The laptop's closed. It's sitting on the laptop.
it was given apparently back to Mark and then re-retrieved before these numbers were generated.
Yes.
When you re-retrieved it, did you just stay at Mark's house, or where were you when you took these pictures of it?
My desk.
So you went to your desk, and I think that what you've stated, or what we've seen in this case, is you take pictures of the readings that are actually on the glucometer, right?
Yes. From
Turning
the
back-
12th, yes.
Turning back, well, I want to ask you about that, from the 12th. So the first reading that you saw on the 12th was this first reading on the chart?
Yes.
And is it your testimony then that there were no other readings prior on the 12th?
I don't believe so. I believe we took every reading from the 12th.
And why do you believe that?
Well, I don't know why we would leave any out.
Well, confirmation bias. So is there any way to know whether or not, if I wanted today to know whether there's a test prior to 9/18 on A12 on that glucometer, is there any way to do that?
Yes,
Where is it?
it's in evidence. You can look it up through the history.
And you don't know as you sit here.
I am 99% sure those are all the readings from the 12th.
Let's move to the first one. Because when you ended, it appears that I surprised you on the importance of that first one, that first reading. That's at 9/18, right?
Yes, it is at 9:18.
And so it appears that somebody pricked their finger and got a reading off of the glucometer at 9/18 on the 12th, right?
Yes, it would appear that Kacee pricked her own finger at 9:18.
That's a conclusion. Let's
That's
just
a
talk about
conclusion.
what the evidence
Correct.
is.
Okay,
Because Meggan wasn't there.
not yet, no.
Oh, we do know that before Meggan arrives, a glucometer is being used presumably by Kacee to measure her blood sugar.
Yes.
Let's just, when you interviewed Meggan for the last time, you and Detective Hales or Sergeant Hales got pretty specific with her about your concerns with the texts, right? The communications, her deleting of the incident.
Yes.
Sorry. And you started to get pretty tough with her about her answers to your questions. In other words, they just weren't believable that she didn't know anything about insulin, right?
Can you tell me what you're referring to? I don't,
Remember when Hales says, things look pretty bad for you, Meggan. This looks bad for you. Remember that?
yeah,
And the reference was to this communication, this texting, the erasing of text, the answers that didn't seem to be true that she was giving. Agreed?
yes.
And then you referred to Meggan and said, we've got other stuff we're waiting on.
I don't think that was me.
Well, did you hear Hales say it?
I believe so, yeah.
And says, I sure hope it doesn't come back to you, Meggan. And if it doesn't, I'll ride off into the sunset. That was the quote. That's what Hales said in your presence to Meggan, right? You remember that?
Vaguely.
And then what you guys were talking about is forensics. Forensics that are involved in an investigation that might corroborate or not corroborate what this insinuating communication tends to show circumstantially. That's what you were talking about, that you had tests waiting, right?
That's what he appears to be talking about. I wasn't.
Were the tests interesting to you?
Yeah, the testimony was
Forensic-
always interesting. Yeah.
Forensics interesting to you?
Yeah.
Did you want to do it in this case?
Did I want to do forensics? Like to get the test results, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the forensics, the state of the forensic evidence in this case. I want the court to know what the state of the forensic evidence is.
Mhm.
Well, we have a variety of items that were taken from the scene. And we've described them a bit and showed pictures. There's the syringe that I called the syringe in the room,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's what Mark got from a Fanta box, at least part of it, not the box, Fanta box and not the rag, but the syringe, vial cap and box, right?
Yes. And the instructions.
And the instructions.
Mhm.
First of all, I want to go back to something we talked about last hearing because I asked about fingerprints and I think you said, the lab said not to bother, the likelihood of fingerprints was low.
That was the first time we took it up. Yes. It did go back up.
Because in reality, you did submit it for fingerprints. You submitted the syringes and the both syringes and the vial.
Yes.
The,
The bottle of insulin. Is that? Yeah.
and the results were, they couldn't find any fingerprints.
There were no fingerprints.
So there's no fingerprint evidence connecting Meggan to any of the forensic activity in this case, right? No fingerprints.
No.
Now, the other thing you did is do some work to develop DNA results, correct?
The touch DNA. Yes.
Now, you say touch DNA because, why don't you tell me, what is touch DNA?
That's just what they test for. I am not a scientist. I couldn't explain that.
What does it mean to you as the case agent on a capital murder?
That if someone is, if like, for instance, I touched this, so they could swab where I touched and there could possibly be my DNA there.
So DNA that would likely have come from the touching of something is what you mean by touch DNA?
Yes.
So you wanted to see if the syringe in the room was touched, right?
Yes.
And you submitted the syringe in the room for, it's called serology, but for someone to see whether there's DNA on there at the lab, right?
Yes.
So that syringe, and I'll just make clear for the record, although thanks to the state, I figured out these these evidence numbers, but that was called evidence number 2, right?
Yes. Item 2. Mhm.
In item 2 in the room.
Yes.
Okay, so you send that up and they say there's no DNA on there. No DNA on this syringe that we can find.
Yes.
I'm going to follow up real quickly with the syringe. What did they find that was inside the syringe?
That is being tested currently, I believe.
So as we sit here in this preliminary hearing, no one knows whether there was anything in that syringe,
Correct.
whether it was ever even used.
Correct.
All right, let's move to what was discarded in the garbage can and put in the bag, and you picked up the bag. That's item 20, right?
Yes.
You submitted that syringe, well, the contents of that bag, we just went over what they are, to the lab to also see whether they could obtain some DNA.
Yes.
And lo and behold, on that syringe, they got touch DNA, right?
On the orange cap, I believe.
Well, okay, let's stay with that. Why do you believe it was only the cap that they got the DNA off of?
I think that's what the report said, to my knowledge.
So we've got the item 20, the syringe out in the garbage in the Fanta box. And sure it's the ones you've done so well and aptly point something out to me. This is just confirm whether that's the description. 1.1.1.
Yeah, from item 20.
Say anything about where on it.
Yeah.
That's just all I'm trying to clarify.
Okay.
I'm going to show you. Sorry, I'm having severe back spasms today. I'm going to show you the report. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
May.
This looked like it's the, I'll show you the front page. The report having to do with the results of DNA testing on item 20. Oh, just a copy.
Yes,
Okay, so what's described by the lab on item cutting, you just sent 20 in because that's sort of the bag of evidence, but they separated and identified their own lab numbers.
correct.
And when they did that, they were analyzing some cuttings for DNA. Cuttings mean they swab and then they take a piece of the swab and they put it in the instrument. Right?
I honestly don't know what they
Well,
do.
that's what they do. And they don't put the whole syringe in there. But if you look at this, it says cuttings in relation to this, the item 20, the Fanta box syringe, right? It says cuttings of swabs of syringe with orange cap.
Are you talking about 1.1.1?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, so cuttings of swabs of syringe with orange cap. As you sit here as the case agent, you don't know where those swabs came from, whether it was the cap or the plunger or the body of the syringe, do you?
no, I don't.
I just want to clarify, because you said it came from the, you thought from the orange cap. We don't have any idea. We just know that DNA was on that syringe that is identified as the syringe with the orange cap, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so let's talk about what they found out. So as soon as they learned there's DNA, they wanted to get some standards. Those are blood or swabs, I'm sorry, buccal swabs from people to get their DNA to be a standard to be matched to whatever the lab found, right?
Yes,
So you got a swab from Megan and you
Mhm.
got a swab from Mark, and you sent their DNA into the lab to see if it matched any of the DNA on the syringe in the Fanta box, right?
yes.
And lo and behold, there were matches, weren't there?
Well, it matched Casey's originally, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, Casey's
Yeah.
and Mark's DNA were found on that syringe. Casey's.
Casey's, yes.
And Megan's was not. She was excluded from having any DNA on that, right?
Right.
So you don't have any DNA evidence as you sit here today at all suggesting that Megan touched any item of evidence that you've tested.
Nope.
Let me follow up when you said results aren't back yet. You sent for more testing apparently to the Quantico FBI lab, right?
Yes.
You didn't do that till June of this year, right?
No, it was a request.
But it was in June, right?
I don't know when it was.
Give your report. Just
Uh,
go all the way to the back. It's one of the last things that was done.
Yep, June.
So Megan's already arrested in June, right?
Mhm.
But you're still trying to see if there's DNA evidence that incriminates her, right?
No,
Right, what did you tell the FBI lab why you're doing it?
they were going to test to see if the liquid in the bottle was insulin or saline.
Let's talk about that. I've seen the report about the request, and it certainly doesn't suggest that you're not seeking more DNA analysis. But with regard to the vial, the bottle of insulin,
Mhm.
one thing they emailed you back was, it doesn't even look like this has been punctured.
He said that it looked like the bottle could be full, and so he asked if we wanted to test if it had been used.
Right.
Mhm.
If a needle had ever even gone into the bottle isn't sure. You're not even sure that's the case in this case right now, right?
Correct.
Have you heard anything about the microscopic testing they're going to do to see whether that vial has ever been used to 20 units like Mark thought?
He suggested, I thought he said 2 units, but I guess I don't understand the question.
Do you have any results about whether that vial has ever been poked by a needle?
No, actually, the Chad Moore, he's out of town, but he said that the name, I can't think of the name of the other lab. There's still, I don't know if it's in line to be tested, but it has not been tested yet.
Right. So let me talk about the item 20, the Fanta box evidence. It has that syringe. What has been done to find out if it had ever been used?
It is also at the FBI lab.
So nothing, you didn't try to get Utah's crime lab to determine whether that syringe had ever had anything inside of it?
No,
So as far as we know, there could be no substances inside of either syringe.
correct.
And could be evidence that neither one was ever used, ever had any substance in it.
Right.
Anything else? I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Redirect.
Thank you, Judge. Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
See if I can figure out between what we did before and what we did today. Let me start with what Mr. Williams most recently was addressing, the submissions to the DNA or to the crime lab and to the FBI. Mr. Williams implied that you were looking for DNA still on the syringe that has been sent to the FBI. Do you recall that question?
Yes, I do.
Did you ask the FBI to conduct DNA analysis on that syringe?
No.
What did you ask them to?
I can look if you want me to. I believe it was just the saline slash insulin in the vial.
And had you asked the Utah Crime Lab to make that test?
Yes.
And what was the response?
They stated they could test it to see if it was saline, but there wasn't a test to determine if it was insulin.
And so why did you take it to the FBI?
They were the only ones that could, and the reason it's taking a while is they had to get a sample of that insulin specifically to test it against the insulin that they received from us.
Okay, and you don't have the results from that back yet?
No.
We talked, or Mr. Williams asked you about the DNA on the two syringes, or the DNA testing on the two syringes, specifically item 2, which was the syringe from the bedroom.
Yes.
Correct? And you said there was no DNA on there. Was that, do you recall that?
Yes.
Testimony? Let me ask you to look at, this is report 4, page 3. Could you pull that up? Is it just waking up?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do you recognize that page?
Yes.
And what is that?
It looks like another DNA analysis from the lab.
All right. And if I represent to you that Q3.1.1 was the swabbing from item 2, does that sound accurate to you?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us what that actual response from the crime lab was about the DNA on that particular item?
It says no DNA profile obtained from cuttings of swabs of syringe.
I'm sorry, look, a paragraph above that. The DNA profile obtained from cuttings of swabs of syringe.
Oh, the DNA profile obtained from cuttings of swabs of syringe demonstrated the presence of a mixture in which the number of contributors cannot reasonably be assumed. Therefore, no further conclusions were drawn.
Okay, so there was DNA on that syringe, correct?
With which syringe was this? Sorry.
This is the one in the item 2, the one from the bedroom.
So yes,
They just couldn't determine whose DNA it was. Is that a
yes.
fair summary of that conclusion?
Item 20.
No, this is item 2.
I can't determine from that picture. I'm sorry.
Um, Can you go back to the first page? Sorry to do that too. Okay, scroll down.
Oh, okay. Item 2. I apologize. I see that now.
Okay. And so item 2 was tested for DNA. There was DNA on it, but they couldn't determine whose DNA it was. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. And so we don't know whether Meggan's DNA was on that syringe or not.
Correct.
Let me back up to some of the testimony from our previous day. We talked about, or Mr. Williams asked you about the photo, and he talked about it today too, the photo of the room syringe that was on the night table. And that was Exhibit 56. Can you pull that up? I'm sorry, Chelsea, I didn't give you any warning. Okay. Do you recall that photograph?
Yes, I do.
All right. And the syringe was found on, where in this general photo was it?
The bottom left on that nightstand.
The nightstand that has some green fuzzy thing and a red handle of some sort?
Yeah, next to it, yes.
Okay. Do we have that the photo of the syringe on the table? Yes, thank you. All right.
You know, if I could have a sip. Councilor Your Honor.
Say that again?
This is where you're going, is to clear that up, right?
Sort of.
Okay, just want you to know, you can be quick about it, because I'm not gonna disagree.
But can you say out loud, you're right?
I will. Judge, what we're talking about is that I brought up with the court the suggestion that when you look at the 2 photographs, it's not in one of the photograph of the room, and then all of a sudden which I suggested meant that there's some curiosity about how and when that syringe was placed on the table and then disappeared from the table. The body cam I reviewed since the last hearing clearly shows that the Osborne, I think it is, asks for a bag, puts it in the bag, and that happens before Osborne takes the pictures.
Thank you.
And the only point I wanted to make between these 2 exhibits, 57 and 56, is do you see that lamp that is near the syringe on exhibit 57?
Yes.
And if we could go back to 56, please. Can you see that lamp in exhibit 56?
No.
So,
And it just to clear it up a little bit, Jorgensen was the one going to collect the syringe. Osborne took the picture. The syringe is still on the table when he did take the picture. So,
okay. But either way, the area where you can't see that lamp in exhibit 56, therefore you can't see the syringe in exhibit 56.
Yes.
Is that fair?
that's fair.
Okay. We talked quite a bit last time about Meggan's parents being at Kacee's home on August 12th. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Were there any text messages that you recall between Meggan and Kacee where Kacee asked Meggan to have her parents there that day?
No.
Were Meggan's parents at the home that entire day?
No.
Do you know when they arrived?
8:29 p.m.
PM? And how do you know that?
The footage from across the street, their security cam.
In your review of the tens of thousands of text messages between these 2, do you recall Kacee ever asking Meggan to have her father give her a blessing? Or was it Meggan asking Kacee to have her father give her a blessing?
I can recall 2 texts, one where Meggan suggests that Kacee was getting sicker and that maybe now that she's ready to go, she should have Lee give her a blessing because Meggan felt like she pushed her into the other ones. And then, no, I guess that's a no.
Okay.
I don't remember. There's a lot.
There is a lot. You don't remember every one of 28,893 messages? And by the way, so while we're on that of the amount of messages between them. What is your feeling about the characterization of them as cherry picking?
I mean, there's a lot, 28,880. So I did have to pick and choose which text I put in the report, or the report would be endless. So I did attempt to pick the ones that most generally showed the context of their text messages throughout the 4 years.
Okay, and did you specifically exclude messages that would have been helpful to Meggan?
No.
You included those in your cherry-picked messages that were in your report?
Well, I left out things that, like, the fluff. So, I mean, a lot of the text messages, as the defense counsel showed, were a lot longer, like the conversations were a lot longer, but I tried to use the meat of the conversation.
Okay. And your perception of the general gist, I guess, of those conversations for over that 4 year plus timeframe, did you feel that the messages that you highlighted were fairly representative of the conversations that were included through
Yes.
those 28,000 plus?
Yes.
Let me go back to the blessing question. Have you, well, in your own life experience, being from Utah, growing up in Utah, being a law enforcement officer in Utah, are you familiar with the concept of blessings?
Yes.
For what is a blessing typically sought?
In my experience, it's usually for calming, for comfort, for health, for basically a situation someone's going for, to bring them peace for that situation.
Peace.
Mhm.
Okay. In your experience, either personal or professional, have you ever before encountered a blessing aimed at someone, helping someone die?
No.
Did you find or see any text messages in which Kacee asked Meggan to have her father be there to help her die?
No.
In the last set of hearings that we had, or the earlier form of this hearing, Mr. Williams talked to you about Kacee's, or that final day, that August 12th. And he characterized the conversation as Kacee instigating what was happening, what happened on August 12th. Do you recall that set of questions?
Yes.
Did you agree with that characterization as Kacee instigating that?
No.
Why not?
Meggan had she had suggested, I have it in my report if I can look at it.
Would that help you refresh
Yes,
recollection?
if that's
Please do
okay.
then.
So this was a little earlier. This was 6 days before Kacee was found unresponsive. It was August 6th. Meggan texts Kacee, says, "Last night you asked me to think about what I thought you should do. Do you remember that?" And Kacee says, "Did you come up with a plan?" Amber, who's a fake nurse, Amber's here and she's just getting stuff set up, but I'm hoping you came up with a plan so you can tell me before I fall asleep. Meggan says, "My thought was give him," and they're talking about Dr. Masteller, "my thought was give him until Thursday night, and if you still don't have a plan from him, try the insulin over the weekend."
So what was the plan they were talking about with Dr. Masteller?
Kacee had said that Dr. Masteller was going to perform a surgery for her so that she could absorb meds like normal people, and then he could give her meds to die.
Okay. And so that is the surgery that Meggan is referring to, waiting to have an answer on before
Yes,
trying the insulin?
yes.
And then what happens after that?
This was regarding that same line. This was on the 9th, so it was 3 days before Kacee was found. Meggan says, so Kacee said, I guess I just thought we were going to come up with a new plan when we talked to him Thursday, but he wouldn't answer me. I had to make an appointment. So then Meggan says, I said that we give him until Thursday, and if he didn't have a date for surgery scheduled, then we'd try the insulin.
Okay.
It goes on, but that's the gist.
So is it fair to characterize their conversations as Meggan pushing Kacee to try the insulin that weekend
Yes.
or Thursday and thereafter? And how did the particular date end up being set upon?
I know Meggan and Kacee went back and forth about it. Meggan and Mitch were missing a vehicle, so she was gonna have to take Mitch to work on Monday if she came on Monday. I believe Sunday, Kacee told her she couldn't come then because it was Kylie's birthday, or she had some other things to do, so they were just going back and forth on how to pick a day.
All right. And, sorry. Excuse me. Were those delay tactics, did you perceive them coming primarily from Meggan or from Kacee?
Kacee.
And then how did the final day, the August 12th was what day of the week?
It was a Monday.
Okay. How did that day come to be an agreement between them? What was the
Let me,
discussion about?
can I look?
Yes, please.
Okay. On the 10th, 2 days before, Meggan texts and says, I'm here to help you, Case. I could make it work today, tomorrow, Monday even. You just tell me what you're most comfortable with. You don't have to draw it up all by yourself. They're referring to insulin. I would come and help you. And then Kacee says that tomorrow would be best. Let me see what day that was. So that was Saturday. So she says Sunday would be the best, but then she tries to get out of it Sunday.
And then what about Monday? Did she try to postpone Monday as well?
Meggan, this was still on Sunday. Meggan says, hey, we can do it later today. Tomorrow would be a bit more challenging just because of the car situation. So Kacee says it's Kylie's birthday, so I know we're having dinner or lunch and like birthday cake and stuff for her while they're here, but hopefully they'll be gone by like 2 or 3. Do you just want me to keep you updated?
Okay. And did Meggan respond to that?
So that same day, on Sunday, Meggan says, I'm not saying you have to do the insulin, I'm just trying to help you think through it. And then they just try to decide on a time, a day and time.
Okay. And they ultimately settled on Monday, the 12th.
Yes.
And when Monday, the 12th, do you recall previous testimony or a text message that Meggan asked to come over and Kacee said she wasn't ready because she didn't have her makeup on?
Yes.
All right. So she tried to delay the 12th as well.
Yes.
The last text message between them before Meggan got to Kacee's house on August 12th, what did that text message say?
It says, do you want to take some promethazine when I get there so that you are asleep when this is happening?
So you are asleep when this is happening.
Yes.
Mr. Williams talked a lot about many dozens, even tens of dozens of alleged suicide attempts by Kacee
Yes.
throughout the years. Do you recall that
Yes,
conversation? He said that she claimed to have made efforts in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Do you
Yes.
recall that?
yes.
First off, did you see or do you have any evidence that she actually did make any of those attempts?
No.
And what was the main difference between each of those events where she claimed she was trying suicide and this time when she actually ended up overdosed?
Meggan was there.
I don't think I have anything further. Thank you for your time.
Any follow-up, Mr. Williams?
Just briefly, are you saying you don't know that on multiple occasions, Meggan was there when Kacee, claiming to be committing suicide, didn't actually die?
Well, they're both liars, so it's hard to understand from the text. I'd have no proof either way.
So Lee told you that he had repeatedly gone over and given this blessing of release to Kacee with Meggan being there, right?
No, I didn't speak with Lee.
Do you read the material in the case file?
Yes.
Do you look at the recordings or listen to the recordings of the videos?
Oh, what are you asking? I'm
I'm
sorry.
asking if you know what Lee said as the case agent. Do you know what Lee
That
said?
he gave her blessings? Yes.
So
Yeah,
you
there's
know-
one recorded on her phone, actually.
You know that there's circumstances where Meggan was there during suicide, supposed suicide. Granted, seems like they're all fakes, but Kacee suicides, Meggan has been there and she lived, right?
I don't have proof of those things, no. I mean, I don't think that the blessing coincided with it, that she was committing suicide while he was there.
Let me just ask you on that subject then about blessings. I mean, it's fair to have in context before the court, don't you think, these communications about these subjects?
What do you mean?
It's fair to keep them in context. You said you didn't know anything about Kacee wanting blessings?
No, I don't recall saying that,
Well,
that
what
she
was
didn't want blessings. No, she asked me if Kacee asked for them, and I said, I don't know.
Okay, you don't know.
Correct.
But you do know that Kacee communicated with Lee, thanking him for blessings.
Yes,
Okay, and that she repeatedly talked in her text to Lee, who she called dad, about how she appreciated a blessing of release.
yes, Kacee liked those blessings. I just didn't know if she asked for them or not. That's all.
Sure. But the circumstantial evidence is there's plenty of them, and that she knows about them and likes them from Lee and appreciates the circumstances under which he's given them to her, right?
Yep.
And on the day that this all occurred, the timeline of Meggan communications includes, first of all, in the middle of the day or whatever, 1 o'clock or 2, she's Googling or doing a search about the glucometer, right?
Are you talking about Meggan when she was there with Kacee that day? Yes.
And then she begins to communicate with her mother that it looks like Kacee might not wake up this time.
I'd have to look at the chronology of that. I don't.
Take a look.
Okay.
Read it to us.
Do you have it? I don't, it's just gonna be hard to find. I want to make everybody wait. I know right around the same time, she
I-
tells her mom that Kacee won't wake up
Okay.
and she
That's
Googles
why
it.
I'm doing it in generalities.
Oh,
Because in fairness,
mhm.
thought you would be recalling what Meggan said on her telephone about Kacee the day Kacee died. But if we can generalize it, it was telling her mom, it doesn't look like she's going to wake up, right?
Right.
And asking, so will you and dad get together and come over here?
I don't have that text.
So you just don't remember. You don't remember what you
I don't
said.
have that text. I did not find where she asked her parents to come over.
From her phone?
No.
The discussion with her mother about they're at dinner, they'll get together after dinner and come over to the house? You don't remember those?
I remember when she said that she asked her to pick up Mitch. She told her dad had had porter all day and that he probably needed a break and that she wouldn't be going to dinner because Kacee wasn't waking up.
And you don't recall that she was setting up, asking her parents to come over there to Casey's because she wasn't going to wait.
There wasn't, that text didn't exist that I saw, unless I just didn't see it.
It's not a trial, we'll pull it and present it at another time. At any rate, what we know about that day is that Meggan and Kacee were once again talking about Kacee committing suicide in the days leading up to this, right?
Yeah.
They talked about specific ways to do it, and even Kacee talked about insulin, right?
Yes,
They were back and forth on choosing the time and date, right?
yes.
Kacee was fully involved in all those discussions, right?
Yeah, she was involved in those.
And it ultimately was a time and a date. That was the 12th, right?
Yep.
And before Meggan even arrived, Casey's pricking her finger, apparently.
That's what it looks like.
Lastly, we talked about the fact that one of the first persons who was directing the scene when the police showed up was Jorgensen. Apparently, I think you said you thought he had a body cam malfunction or failure. You were going to ask him about it. And we saw that he took pictures. You were going to ask him about it. Have you seen whether that evidence?
Yeah, so I did go back in my report, and in December, I had watched his body cam, and I wrote a report on his body cam. I can't find it now. I don't know where it is. My sergeant is looking into that, so we don't know if he labeled it incorrectly. I did ask him about the picture. I showed him the body cam that shows him taking the picture. He looked in his clouds, his phones. He's like, I took a picture of an envelope. I don't even remember what it was. And that's,
So we don't have his evidence by body cam or photographic.
I mean, my recall of his body cam is, I guess, what we have of his body cam. Yes.
You have how you would characterize his body cam is all we have.
I mean,
I don't have it to check whether your characterization is correct. Is that fair?
I don't think we do.
Thank
We're
you.
still looking.
Just one brief couple
Go ahead.
questions. Detective Farney, the times that there were blessings of release, so-called done, did those coincide with any of the attempts that Kacee described as trying to commit suicide?
I honestly don't know. They weren't, what I could find, there wasn't a, hey, I'm gonna have a blessing today and I'm gonna commit suicide tonight. I didn't see anything like that, no.
Okay. As far as you know, did Meggan's parents and Meggan and her family and everybody believe that Meggan or that Kacee had cancer
Yes,
and was dying of cancer?
yes.
And so it. Okay, thank you.
Counsel, thank you. Can this witness step down?
Yes.
Thanks for being here again. You can step down. I believe the state has concluded their portion. Did it last hearing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does defense wish to call any witnesses?
No, Your Honor. And I'll make a record here, as is of course appropriate, that Ms. Sundwall has spoken with me on many occasions about the fact that she has a right to testify at this preliminary hearing. I have advised her not to avail herself of that right. And she has always indicated that she is going to follow my advice, notwithstanding what she has to tell. So is that right, Meggan? You are not going to testify even though you have a right to? Say it loud for the record.
Thank you.
Other than that, we're not going to present testimony. We just like to argue on the bind over.
All right, and that's my understanding that we discussed at the last hearing. We're just going to have oral arguments.
Yes,
Is that correct? No one
Yes.
wishes to brief anything.
That's correct.
All right.
Wouldn't mind a break.
We can do that.
If we could do
Yeah,
that.
I think that'd be appropriate. Let's take about a 10-minute break. We on?
Yes.
We're going to go back on the record on case 251-401-132, State of Utah versus Meggan Sundwall. Just concluded the evidentiary portion of the preliminary hearing. We're now going to have oral arguments from the parties as it relates to the bind over.
Judge, we have one issue to address. The exclusionary rule from the state's perspective is still in effect. I noticed a few witnesses from the defense side that are present in the courtroom. There's also WebEx. There are 19 attendees, and I'm hoping that your clerk can show us those names so we can take care of who those folks are.
You can do that.
That's not 19.
Well, that's happening, Your Honor. I just want to alert the state, I disagree on the interpretation of the exclusionary rule. I'm going to seek to have
Just let me know when you
the witnesses that would otherwise have been subject to that rule, which we have maintained fidelity to thus far, remain in the courtroom for the argument portion.
I would object to that. The whole point of the exclusionary rule is that witnesses that will be testifying at trial are not privy to what is evidence and testimony, which is entirely what we'll be going over in the arguments.
Mr. Williams.
That's what makes it supercilious at a preliminary hearing. I could show these witnesses the trial preparation transcripts of what happened, but it applies to the preliminary hearing, but the evidentiary portion, if we have to look at it together and determine whether I'm right or wrong, I'm fine with that. I was just searching it up. I haven't read the rule verbatim, but I mean, I think it's that they can't hear other people's testimony. They could hear the characterization of someone's testimony in a statement to the press tonight.
They certainly could, but we're here in court. We just concluded with the preliminary hearing. I'm about to hear oral arguments where the parties are going to summarize direct testimony from witnesses. So I do find it appropriate to exclude any potential witnesses, even from this portion of the hearing. So if there are any witnesses present who may be called in the future, if you could please wait outside. I appreciate your patience. Anything else?
Not from the state.
All right. Ms. Hunter, are you going to argue?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I'll echo Ms. Thomas's opening statement about the scope and aim of a preliminary hearing as reaffirmed in State v. Labrum 2025 UT 12 paragraphs 52 and 57. A preliminary hearing is not a trial on the merits. As Your Honor knows, the court is not to weigh conflicting evidence, assess credibility, or resolve factual disputes. The sole function is to determine whether the evidence, when viewed in the light most favorable to the state, establishes probable cause that the defendant committed the crimes charged. The state has presented ample evidence supporting bindover for both aggravated murder and obstructing justice against Meggan Sundwall. I'll start with aggravated murder. To bind over on aggravated murder, the state must show that the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused the death of another human being and did so either for pecuniary gain and/or did so by administration of a lethal substance. The state, as I'll outline, we've presented evidence of both, but only one aggravator is necessary. I want to speak to causation, and then I'll speak to intent, and within both of those is evidence that the defendant, Meggan Sundwall, is who committed this act. Evidence throughout the preliminary hearing has demonstrated that Kacee Terry died on August 15th, 2024, after being hospitalized with a blood sugar of 14, far below survivable limits, after steady and severe decline with no medical intervention. We heard that from Ms. Allred, Exhibit 2, and Detective Farney's testimony. Medical experts that testified confirmed that the cause of death was hypoglycemia due to exogenous insulin. Some exhibits that reference that are 58 and 52. Although Ms. Terry did have other substances in her system, all but alprazolam, which is Xanax, were prescribed to her, and all were within therapeutic ranges. We heard testimony that Ms. Terry had been taking the opioids. Text messages demonstrate that had also been taking Xanax. The testimony observed that she would have developed a tolerance of those, and still all were within therapeutic ranges. Testimony from multiple witnesses, including Dr. Muri, Dr. Masteller, and Diane Allred, and the toxicologist, Mr. Larson, indicate that Kacee likely would not have died but for the exogenous insulin. And still may not have died. Ms. Allred talked about how she still may not have died, even from this level of insulin and this severe drop in blood sugar, had Meggan given her medical intervention sooner. Kacee was not diabetic. She had no medical need for insulin. Her primary care physician, Dr. Masteller, testified that even a small dose could have been fatal given her insulin-naive status. Insulin and a syringe were recovered from the trash outside. We heard about the Fanta box extensively, a location inconsistent with how any family member living at the home disposed of medications. We heard that from Mark Farnsworth and Exhibit 4. The glucose monitor used on August 12th, belonging to Mark's mother, was found in Kacee's room and showed 19 readings over a 10-hour span, some taken after Kacee indisputably would have been unconscious. We learned that from Detective Farney's testimony, Exhibit 2, and a number of the medical witnesses. It's indisputable, given the evidence, that Meggan Sundwall would have had to be the person checking Kacee's blood sugar at least from 1:43 p.m. on, when her blood sugar level was 43 and lower. We heard from medical experts that she would have likely been in a coma at that point. She could not possibly have tested her own blood sugar. Meggan was the one with her. So we know at least Meggan, at this point in my argument, we know at least that Meggan is testing her blood sugar. Meggan Sundwall was present in the home all day from approximately 10 a.m. until Kacee was found unresponsive by Mark around 9 p.m. We know that from Mark's testimony and Exhibit 55. We know that Meggan did not perform CPR and that she heavily discouraged Mark from calling 911, stating that there was a DNR, but no DNR or advance directive existed. We know this from Mark's testimony, Kylie's testimony, Dr. Masteller, and Detective Farney. In text messages, Meggan told Kacee she could help by administering insulin in her sleep and repeatedly offered to draw up and inject insulin. There are obviously very many thousands of text messages, but some examples of those were presented as State's Exhibits 23, 28, and 29. Detective Farney's investigation revealed that some point on the 12th, Meggan searched on her phone, Freestyle Light, which is the type of glucometer that was present. Freestyle Light, how low can it go? The glucose monitor reading was LO, low at the time, indicating life-threatening hypoglycemia, which is present in Exhibit 3. I want to talk now about intent. Meggan Sundwall had a conscious objective to cause Kacee Terry's death. Meggan, over the years, over at least 4 years, educated Kacee on insulin's effects. She procured and delivered insulin, even offering to administer it while Kacee was asleep. That's shown in Exhibit 20 from September 2nd, 2020. We heard that Meggan brought some home from work and put it in the fridge and asked Kacee a few times whether she intended to use it or if Meggan should take it back to work. Meggan expressed frustration when Kacee didn't die. Quotation from a text message, "You have to let go," have being in all caps. "There is nothing left for you here." On multiple occasions, Meggan texted Kacee, "Do you want me to help you?" Some examples of that are located in Exhibits 29, 31, and 48. Meggan coached, encouraged, and prepared Kacee to die. Meggan escalated pressure in the final weeks, July through August of 2024, pushing for the use of insulin. Exhibits 43 through 48 demonstrate that. Meggan offered to administer the insulin herself on multiple occasions. Exhibit 28 from June 10th of 2021. Meggan, are you nervous to do it yourself? Kacee, no, just not sure what I'm doing. Meggan, want to know what I do? Kacee, yes. Meggan, if I wanted to make sure it did what it was supposed to do, I'd draw them all up, everything you've got, and give it all at once through your port. Kacee, even the sedation? Meggan, I don't think even you could survive that. Meggan again, do you want me to come over and do it? Exhibit 29 from June 11th, 2021. Meggan, Case, I will come over and help you do them, exclamation point. At 12:46 p.m. When Kacee didn't respond, again at 7:23 p.m. Meggan, I'm happy to come over and help you if you are really ready to be done, exclamation point. Exhibit 30 from June 12th, 2021. Meggan, I don't think you will. That's why I said that I'd be willing to come over and help you. I really feel like you need to do some deep soul searching and figure out what's holding you back and what you need to let go of. When you are actually ready, you let me know and I'll be there to help you. You won't be able to do it alone. These are just a few examples in the hundreds of texts between Meggan and Kacee. I'll get to more recent ones in a minute, but where Meggan is offering, pushing, in fact, to actually do it, help Kacee with it, be the one that administers the insulin. The volume, duration, and escalation of messages, coupled with Meggan's medical training, creates strong circumstantial evidence of intentional and knowing behavior on behalf of the defendant. On August 12th, 2024, the primary date in question here, despite Kacee's attempt to cancel, Meggan came to her house anyway. At 1:59 p.m., Meggan texted her mom, I'm still here with Case. She's not doing too great. I can't even get her to wake up. And that's from Exhibit 5. At that time, Kacee's glucose level was 30, according to the glucose monitor recovered from her room. Judge, although weighing competing theories or credibility is not appropriate at a preliminary hearing, I want to touch on the argument that I'm anticipating from defense that Kacee committed suicide herself. Obviously, we know that Kacee expressed numerous times over many years that she was suicidal, that she had attempted suicide in various ways, that she just couldn't die, that she took bottles of pills and vials of insulin and nothing would work. However, testimony from Mark, Kylie, and Dr. Masteller indicate that Kacee had imminent plans for the future, including replacing her other knee. She had just had one knee done 2 weeks prior. She had plans to get licensed for a new job, and she made no plans for her very beloved dog, Bella, in the event of her suicide. The state, again, concedes that Kacee did lie to family and friends about various things, most primarily her medical condition. And so take, people's testimony about what Kacee was telling them, for sure, take that with a grain of salt. We know that Kacee demonstrably lied to many people about that. But when you look at her internet searches and activity the night of August 11th into the morning of August 12th, the day that she was found unresponsive, they indicate that Kacee was not suicidal. And this references Exhibit 49. She searches, is it okay to give yourself a shot with just, and she misspells it, saline in it, and then she retypes it, is it okay to give yourself a shot with saline solution? Searches again, will injecting saline in your arms with a syringe hydrate you? She also searched blood pressure before death, signs of active dying, variations in vital signs in last days of life in patients with advanced cancer, long-lasting insulin or long-acting insulin, Revere health locations, how much I don't know if I'm saying this right, furosemide can you take in a day? How to prepare for a mammogram. She looked on Amazon for nightstands, 18-inch farmhouse nightstand and a rustic couch. She looked on Wayfair and Amazon for storage and organization. She looked at a clothing site, torrid.com, and she looked at furniture on overstock.com. And this is all supposed to be hours before she intends to commit suicide. That is not the searches of somebody that intends to commit suicide in a planned way in a few hours. Meggan herself, in her third interview with police on August 29th, 2024, admitted that even she never took Kacee's suicidal statements seriously. That's in Exhibit 13. The text messages between the two of them also demonstrate that Kacee continuously tried to put Meggan off and prevent Meggan from coming to see her, or, and in these, this is in heavy quotations, help her commit suicide. Indeed, even on August 11th, Kacee tried to put Meggan off from coming over, saying it was Kylie's birthday, they were having family over, and maybe another day would work. We just heard again on August 12th, the morning of, she said, I'm not ready yet, I want my makeup on, and tried to put Meggan off again. The state is not shying away from the fact that Kacee certainly lied about her medical condition. But her lies, at least to Meggan, were patently ridiculous. Nearly every medical professional testified that a licensed and trained nurse, as Meggan was, would have known that the vitals, circumstances surrounding hospice, all of the nurses, the conditions that Kacee was texting, this surgery that Dr. Mausteller was going to get her to have so she could better absorb medications so she could die, are absurd, medically impossible, or meaningless. Dr. Mausteller testified that he would expect the clerk at his front desk, and I think he even made reference to every person in this courtroom who obviously were clearly not medically trained, to know that the vitals that Kacee were sending to Meggan were preposterous. This indicates that Kacee had a profound mental illness. What the text messages demonstrate is that Kacee desperately wanted attention. She wanted it from a lot of people. Her family believed she had cancer. She lied to a lot of people, but she lied most specifically and most fantastically to Meggan. And instead of helping Kacee seek mental health help for her obvious need, Meggan continuously took advantage of Kacee's extremely vulnerable state. Meggan heavily encouraged suicide over multiple years, and when Kacee did not relent, Meggan went to her home and did it herself. Just as her text message from March 1st, 2022 says, Meggan, honestly, I think with the insulin, someone, parenthesis, should probably be me, close parenthesis, should stay with you and continue to give you doses so it will actually stay low and you can pass. And Judge, the most illuminating text is the final message sent before Meggan was arriving at Kacee's home on August 12th. This is Exhibit 50. Meggan texted Kacee, do you want to take some promethazine when I get there so that you are asleep when this is happening? Taken together, the evidence supports that Meggan intentionally and knowingly administered insulin to Kacee, remained present as her condition deteriorated, not getting her medical intervention, fulfilling the actus reus and mens rea of homicide. I'll turn now to the first aggravator, which is for pecuniary gain. Meggan believed she was the beneficiary of a $1 million life insurance policy. We know this from Detective Farney, Exhibits 15 through 17, and the testimony of Kylie Clark. Texts spanning years, starting in 2020, also show Kacee confirming this belief to Meggan, and Meggan referencing it in increasingly desperate financial contexts. Exhibit 15 from 2020, Kacee says, it's going to you, remember? I made sure to keep paying on it. Exhibit 32 from October of 2023, Meggan, I don't think Mitch and I are going to stay together. I need to know what I'm looking at. Exhibit 42 from July 16th, 2024, Meggan, unless Kacee passes and she really does leave me the money. April 29th, 2024, Exhibit 41, Meggan to her husband, Mitch. I just keep counting on the thing with Kacee being true to bail us out. Exhibit 18, Meggan to Mitch on December 10th, 2020. I think Kacee is going to outlive me and we are going to be stuck in our situation forever. Even after learning from detectives that Meggan was not the beneficiary, she still called John Hancock within days, that's in Exhibit 11, inquiring about Kacee's policy. This demonstrates continuing belief and financial interests. The second aggravator is administration of a lethal substance. Medical testimony confirmed that insulin is a lethal substance when administered to a non-diabetic, especially somebody like Kacee who had no tolerance or medical need. We learned that from Dr. Masteller and Ms. Allred. The insulin was not prescribed to Kacee. It was administered externally, as evidenced by the C-peptides and her rapid decline in blood sugar and her status as a non-diabetic. Meggan knew insulin was difficult to detect post-mortem and referenced this fact in messages. We know this from Detective Farney in Exhibits 28 and 19. The monitor activity and syringe evidence also possibly suggests that multiple doses of insulin may have been given throughout the day. We know that from Ms. Allred, Dr. Masteller, and Exhibit 2. I'll turn now to obstructing justice. To bind over for obstructing justice, the state must show the defendant knowingly altered, destroyed, or concealed material evidence during a criminal investigation. She did this in a few different ways. Over 280 text messages were selectively deleted from Meggan's phone after Kacee's death. Messages that dealt directly with insulin administration, discussions of suicide, and references to the life insurance policy. We know this from Detective Farney in Exhibit 3. When questioned, Meggan initially denied deleting texts and later admitted to it only after being confronted. We know that from Detective Farney and Exhibit 13. Meggan also made demonstrably false statements to police about having a DNR and hospice involvement. We know that from Detective Farney in Exhibits 6 through 8. None of this was supported by any documentation or testimony from actual medical providers. We know that from Dr. Masteller and Ms. Allred. Additionally, Meggan made provably false statements to police, stating that she had no idea what Kacee had taken. She was just over there to watch a movie. Kacee seemed out of it. She had no idea what happened. But then in a jail phone call to her husband, she directly contradicts that. Exhibit 9. She says, maybe I should tell Scott, referencing her attorney, that I knew what she was doing and didn't help her. These efforts to delete, conceal, and fabricate documents and communication during the investigation meet the elements of obstruction under Utah Code 768306. In conclusion, the state has introduced extensive testimonial, documentary, and forensic evidence from multiple medical professionals, law enforcement, family members with firsthand knowledge of Kacee's future plans, Kacee's own search history with indications of her future plans, and most importantly, the defendant's own communications with her in text messages. Viewing all of this evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution, as this court must at this stage, a reasonable person could conclude that Meggan Sundwall intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Kacee Terry. She was motivated by financial gain, and she did so through the administration of a lethal substance. She also attempted to conceal her involvement by destroying and fabricating evidence and making false statements to the police. Unless Your Honor has questions, the state respectfully requests that the charges of aggravated murder and obstructing justice be bound over for trial.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is of course I'm aware, and I want to speak to any burdens. Meggan's aware, whole family's aware of what the burden of proof is at a preliminary hearing. But this is I believe, a very remarkable circumstance. Sure, case should and could be bound over on reasonable inferences from circumstantial evidence. But the circumstantial evidence in this case doesn't support an act that day by Meggan other than cherry picking. For 4 years or more, these people communicated Kacee, who is the most convincing liar I didn't think after 33 years of doing this, I would say this, that I've ever seen. She convinced everybody of what she claimed she had, she intended to do. I want to set aside this sort of moral argument the state seems to be making about failure to aid and letting her die and seeing that she's reaching out and desperate with mental health issues, that's not a chargeable offense. But it's interesting insofar as the circumstantial argument of the government here that she certainly lived a life convincing people of what she wanted to convince them of that was patently, seemingly fatuous. And so the relevance there is, and it's before you, and of course you don't have all the evidence, and if there's a trial, it'll probably be vetted much more thoroughly, but I think our point was to show that you could pick a few unsavory comments that meet your theory out of 2,800 or 28,000 text messages. But what we do know about the general nature of this relationship is that Kacee successfully convinced Meggan repeatedly that she was going to commit suicide and wanted Meggan's quote unquote help, which if you read the text, and that's why we presented some in context, is personal appearance and including a blessing of release. And it happened, she fooled Meggan's whole family in that respect. Now, what is interesting to what the state tried to intercept in the way of an argument is incorrect. I don't think, as again, it suggests a lack of even common sense and experience that if someone has plans for something in the future or is Googling furniture, that they're not going to go through with suicide if they're suicidal. So, but suicide intent isn't necessary at all to understand this case. Faking it is. Successfully convincing someone you're going to do it when time and again you're faking. You're faking like you're cancer. You're faking like your broken leg. You're faking like who's your friend. You're faking like my sister likes me and then to her husband, my sister doesn't like me. You're faking your whole life successfully. What we know is she intended to at least fake Ms. Sundwall out on the 12th because she was getting ready and pricking herself with the glucometer before Meggan even arrived. The intent is to convince Meggan that it's going to happen. And I think pretty clearly, maybe, I guess, unfortunately, from the state's perspective, and unfortunately from the family's perspective, but I don't know for Kacee's perspective, unfortunately, she seems to have messed up and done it. That's the circumstantial evidence in this case, at least with all that background, never mind unsavory comments, never mind that immediately upon being kicked out of the house and accused of murder, that Meggan acted suspiciously in trying to distance herself of what she thought people might use to try to conjure up a murder theme. And unfortunately, I'll submit it, circumstantial evidence. It's of course evidence of spinning out because you're going to be falsely accused, but that's not what prelims for. Inferences are in favor of the government. I get that. But it is not the sort of evidence that's going to overcome what we do in court. This is a rifle shot of a case that she caused it. She intentionally and knowingly did something there. That's why they need to seek DNA. That's why they need fingerprints. That's why we have to have some substantial proof to advance their sort of use of the red yarn on the map of text messages, to advance that to a evidence that Meggan did it. Here's the evidence. She didn't need to because Kacee's clearly pricking her finger already. Why would she do that? And pricking her finger after she's unconscious is exactly what you would expect. Unlike all of the other times, Ms. Sundwall actually had an ability to see whether she was serious this time. When she shouldn't wake up, she pricked her finger to see, watched it plummet, started to go, this thing now says low. I'm going to Google what it means. Hardly someone who's got a predetermined plan to go execute a murder. She has to Google what the instrument means. And then Dexter communicates with his mother and says, I think it's going to happen. She's not going to wake up. We promised her our presence. We promised her the blessing of release. Can you guys come over? And you know what? It happened. She died in her presence. Well, she didn't die in her presence because she was interrupted. But that's the circumstantial evidence of what happened with again, a red yarn on a map of text messages as an argument that Meggan did it. Consider, by the way, their own testimony from the experts, which is the insulin injection, we cannot determine at all how long before her being picked up and taken to the hospital it could have been done. 18 hours to 24 hours is what Masteller said. The nurse from the ICU, I'm sorry, Diane, is it? She, beyond talking about seeing people conscious at blood sugar level of 29 once, also said, in terms of, this is a critical question, right? Could Kacee have introduced exogenous insulin prior even to Meggan being there? Their evidence is yes. And the evidence is she's already pricking her finger to see how it's doing. Why does she need to prick her finger if she hasn't already done something? So the circumstantial evidence of that day is, sure, I'll bet you she was going to try to fake Meggan out again. Maybe she was testing to see whether she had done just enough to carry it out, but not die. That's what those searches are the night before, by. Remember the searches that Kacee did? How much does it take to die? Fast acting, short acting? It's Kacee making those searches the night before, not Meggan. And so what you need in a court of law for the most serious use of this statute, most serious statute you can bring to use, is evidence, direct evidence of the act, because the circumstantial evidence doesn't suggest that the act was done. It suggests it could have been done, but it doesn't say that the act was done, that she did something in there, even if she wanted it to happen, that she did it. It is just red yarn on a text message page. I understand we're at a preliminary hearing. I understand the burdens. I understand circumstantial evidence can make it. I believe, and I'm going to state this, although I'll just admit it's a lawyerly statement for a record, but super due process applies when you use the death penalty. And I don't think there's any law that suggests that necessarily changes the burden, but this court knows that there are exceptions to the credibility determinations and the amount, quantity of proof that a court needs to bind a case over. And I would suggest that at least in a super due process capital context, that's relevant. It is not a simple box checking endeavor. And of course, the case law repeatedly says it's not a rubber stamp. So Your Honor does have some consideration to do. And if their theory is circumstantial, is it the circumstantial evidence the only one, or even the most likely one? I submit it's not. I submit also that, well, I suppose I have to agree. I hate to agree, but this cause theory is bound up in the administration of the poison. I suppose you couldn't fail to bind over on the aggravator of poison because the only theory they have, not only is that Kacee died by insulin, that doesn't get him anywhere, except without proof, evidence sufficient for the bind over, that Meggan put it in her. That's the rifle shot of this case. That is the center of the target. Everything outside the yarn of the government's theory supports the notion that whether she wanted her to die, was sick of her faking it, whatever, that absolutely reasonable to believe that whether intentionally or mistake, accidentally, Kacee was the only one that administered what happened. She's checking her blood. It's going down. She's searching insulin. Everything lines up to that she's the only one. There's no evidence. And you try to get it, the only evidence, the only DNA on a syringe in this whole case is Kacee's. That's the only DNA on the case, on a syringe is Kacee's DNA. So I'm sure it's obvious to Your Honor that no forensic evidence supports it. Forensic evidence that should. Kacee touched something enough to have her DNA on it. And so, like Sergeant Hale said, if it doesn't come back to support our yarn theory, we will ride off into the sunset. Well, that's obviously not what's happened. And I think that that's a statement that's relevant to what a burden is, a burden even at a preliminary hearing. I'm asking you not to bind over on pecuniary gain. I mean, I think the most reasonable argument here, if Meggan Sundwall did cause a death, it was for Kacee. She repeatedly talked about insurance policy. I wondered whether my grandpa had one too. He was full of it and always told me I had one. I was a beneficiary. And I knew he was full of it. And then guess what? He didn't have one either. But guess what I did when he died? I checked. So I don't think, and as a matter of fact, remember the government's own exhibit to the discussion, which was the discussions between Meggan and her husband, is if she really does. When even the evidence they're producing to, unless she passes, I'll probably outlive her and we'll be stuck. We'll never get the money. Anyone would want the money. Anyone who thinks they're a beneficiary wants the money. Doesn't mean they're going to be a killer for it. It sure took a long time to manifest that plan. She's been dealing with this for 5 years, in case he's never died. But she says if she really has one, all we know is that Meggan may have believed, or believed that she may, is the best way to phrase it, believe that she may be the beneficiary. I don't think that that's enough to bind over on pecuniary gain, because it's not if the defendant committed it for, it's defendant, is for pecuniary gain. I think it demands some evidence of certainty that the gain is going to happen. I'll submit on obstruction as to deletion of messages. I don't believe you should bind over on subsection J, providing false information by in relation to what the state said, which is whether there was that Meggan somehow lied by saying there was a DNR or other documents. I think that it's proven here beyond any reasonable doubt that Meggan probably believed that, even though they didn't exist. But I would otherwise submit it. That is not the utter gravamen of this court proceeding and this decision. We all know it. The utter gravamen is the sanctity and seriousness of seeking the death penalty, which I do think is an umbrella to be considered when making the conclusions for bind over in this case. Does the court have any other questions of me?
I don't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counsel, thank you both. Mr. Williams is right. This is as serious as a case as you can get. Just is. What I intend on doing is I'm going to take this under advisement. I want to set a date to come back for a status conference. My plan is to have a written ruling as it relates to the potential bind over, and have that filed before we come back for our status conference. And then we'll go from there. Council, I'm hoping we could do it on our regular law in motion. That work for everybody?
Yes.
How about August 18th at 1 o'clock via WebEx? And then depending on what the ruling is, we'll talk about options. 1 o'clock on the 18th of August, would that work for everybody?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
All right, we'll come back for a status conference. And again, it's my hope that I'll have a written ruling filed before then. And then we'll go from there. Council, is there anything else we need to cover?
Not from the state.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Sundwall, you're going to have questions. It's important to stay in contact with your attorney. We'll see everybody on WebEx on the 18th at 1 o'clock.